Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Concussion Nerds podcast. And today we are joined by a special guest and friend of mine, Mr. Mike Lee. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you for having me. Good to see you.
Oh, so stoked to have you here. So, for everyone listening, you know, when I invite a guest to come join me, they're either in a super sciencey brain and can speak to the neuroscience of what we talk about with concussion, or there's someone who's been on this journey, or they have a wealth of information in an area that I want you to know more about. And Mike kind of fits into all three of these areas. So, quick high level intro. And then, Mike, I'll let you introduce yourself a little bit deeper. But Mike is the co founder of Soul CBD, retired professional boxer, but he had a killer record 21-1 and 11 KOs. And that, honestly, as a mom of a boy and a concussion expert, like makes me cringe a little bit, but I love it.
Yeah. Me too.
And just an overall amazing human. So, Mike, thank you for being here. Can you give us a little bit more insight into you and just kind of who you are and your passion?
Yeah, like you mentioned, I had a 10-year career as a professional athlete, fighter, 22 fights, and super grateful for that. I mean, I've got some belts behind me that I won at different incredible arenas. So I got to fight in Madison Square Garden and Cowboys Stadium. My last fight was for a world title at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. So a lot of moments that I dreamt of since I was a little kid,
That's
but
amazing.
a lot of ups and downs, honestly, too, as well. And so, you know, you mentioned the concussions or you just kind of cringing with the 22 fights. I think that it gave me a lot of blessings, but also at the same
Mhm.
time, definitely took damage to my body. And throughout my career, not only from concussions, I think it exacerbated things. In 2013, I was 12-0, undefeated, on top of the world. I just landed 2 Super Bowl commercials. I just fought at Madison Square Garden. It was nuts. It was crazy.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was for a Subway, funny
Okay.
enough. Subway sandwiches with like Michael Phelps, Nastia Lukin. So anyway, super grateful for that. It was incredible. But all of a sudden I started getting really, really sick. We couldn't figure out why. And I spent almost 2 years, about a year and a half, in and out of hospitals, battling what they later found out or thought was an autoimmune disease, but also some concussion issues. I ended up getting back into the ring, which I'm proud of. But at the same time, now that I look back, I do think I probably should have retired, because the second half of my career, the next 8, 9 fights, was definitely different. It wasn't the same energy. It wasn't the same motivation. I feel like I was pulling myself into things
Mhm.
that I didn't want to be doing. And so my motives changed. I had to start listening to my body. And it was a really, really dark period for me. And, I retired in 2020. And like I said, super grateful. But now I'm on a massive mission to not only heal myself, but help other people heal as well. Because at my lowest, I was on 8 or 9 different medications. And I just knew, number 10 wasn't the next answer. And so all that pain was really a gift, because it forced me into this world of learning how to heal myself and learning how to seek consult from people that really, really care about my well-being versus just writing a script and me being another cog in the wheel, so to speak. So
Mhm.
yeah, a lot of ups and downs, but I'm
Some
grateful, and
huge,
here we are.
yeah, some huge wins in there. Like, and those moments, I say I cringe, but it's like I also can appreciate the dream and the drive and the discipline to reach that level and passion you had to have had to reach that level in your sport is unbelievable. And I know so many people would dream of that. So congratulations on all of those accomplishments, of course. So obviously most people listening to this podcast are clinicians who either help people with concussion, and a lot of us are kind of fall into that, I would say, that allied health holistic practice of people, or someone on a journey. And you talked about, in those 2 years when you were going through, whether it was the autoimmune or whatever it was happening, and the really challenging health pieces, I'm guessing there were some moments that were like the lowest of lows.
Mm.
And there are definitely people here listening who have been on this persistent concussion journey for years, and people who are really struggling to put one foot in front of the other. And as much as people become scared to dream
Mm.
again because they feel like they're not going to be able to reach it. When you were in some of those deepest parts of before this shift, did you keep yourself moving forward?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I felt the same things. Even today, I'm not 100%. I still deal with some concussion issues. I was diagnosed with Lyme disease in February, and We now wonder if that was really the culprit of a lot
Mhm.
of things going on, since it's been chronic and it was just misdiagnosed. But, I think you just constantly have to stay positive. It's so tough because it's understanding that there's no magic bullet, right? I think so often we spend all this time and money on something, you expect for it to solve all of your issues, and it just doesn't. And then you feel let down. But what motivated me and what kept me in a right state of mind was comedy. And what I mean by that
Mhm.
is like almost faking it till you make it. So like I remember literally being in hospital beds, or even to this day when I have moments of depression, which I've dealt with since I was a little boy, or different levels of anxiety, or just feeling like, I'm having a down day, I will always throw something on that makes me laugh. And I know it seems
Mm.
stupid, it seems simple, but it's honestly the thing that gets me through. So I think doubling down on that sadness and, listening to sad movies or sad music or whatever is not the ticket. I think
Mhm.
what really, really helped me is I would watch like Will Ferrell movies or like The Office or Parks and Rec or bloopers. And it sounds like such a simple thing, but laughing and feeling positive in those moments when I felt at my lowest physically and mentally helped me kind of crawl out of those days.
Mhm.
And that's the one thing I always tell people, because this is a mindset battle more than anything. Like, it is your mindset around this. And if you truly, truly believe that you can solve this and you can fix this, it may take 30 days, it may take 30 years, but knowing that you're going to try to enjoy the ride as much as possible. And so fake it till you make it, and insert comedy, whatever that looks like for you, and laughter in your life, and force yourself to laugh even when you don't want to, is really what got me through by far some of the darkest moments of my life.
Yeah, thank you. I always talk about, like, finding that thing that brings you joy every day
Mhm.
and that piece of things for sure. So again, you said when you're like, I was in that hospital bed and like, is it medication number 10? I preach about and talk about the power of holistic health. And you and I have had these conversations. You have a sauna and a cold plunge at your house. Like, I'm so jealous. And so we've chatted about like this holistic approach to life, whether it's the lifestyle habits we choose to make, the mindset tools we choose to make. And I think so often people commonly feel like the system has failed them because they get stuck in this, like, literally a cog in the wheel of our like westernized medical system. And so what was that step that brought you out of that medication number 10 and moving into more the holistic piece, and what did that journey look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that was just constantly beating my head against the wall and just feeling like none of this was really working. I mean, I was on Humira, which is, a TNF blocker. You literally stab the needle in your leg for, once a week, and methotrexate and painkillers. And it just kind of felt like it was putting a band aid on everything. So it wasn't one or two things. It was really the mindset first. Like, I started reading a lot of like Tony Robbins. I started diving into, all these different books, like You Are the Placebo by Joe Dispenza, and really just starting to believe that, like, okay, I need to start healing myself. And it kind of, if I'm being honest, came out of desperation. It was just like, I don't know where else to turn. And I see these other people and I hear these success stories. And so I'm going to go that route. I will say, first and foremost, whether it's depression, concussion issues, autoimmunity, getting your diet down was massively important. I didn't realize how important diet was, and getting extremely granular with it. And then also getting some type of mindset or mental practice in your mind. So, two very
Mhm.
simple things. And for me, sauna, cold plunge, or meditation, or breath work, or things that are kind of free, low risk, high reward, is really where I started. And then from a diet side, I learned that high protein, high fat was really, really much better for me, and high carb was not the answer. And so, almost keto esque. And I know
Mhm.
there's some studies around keto with brain health and I think Alzheimer's. And so, for me, really leaning into that type of lifestyle and not making it, I'm going to try this for 30 days, but like, this is my life now.
Mhm.
And that really helped, because I think momentum is everything. Like, no matter what, if you feel like you're progressing a little bit, it gives you that extra little push that you have. And so the mindset and the nutrition are really not simple, but they're things in your control that can give you that momentum.
I love that. Thank you. So Soul CBD. So it's you and your sister that have like this amazing company that it's exploding, if not exploded already. What led to the creation? Like, where did this idea come from? How did it come to fruition? Because you've already shared that you still struggle with some health stuff, so you weren't 100% healthy. So I'd love to talk about like where did that like brain nugget come from that led to like Soul CBD? And then you've shared like you're currently working through Lyme. How today do you kind of manage and balance the health issues that you're still working through and running this company?
Yeah, I mean, it's not easy. I think first of all, the birth of the company really came from me dealing with all these autoimmune issues and anxiety on top of that. And the one thing I learned, no matter what, is that when you are in fight or flight and you have this anxiety, everything else is trickle down effect, is exacerbated and hurt because of it. And so just through noticing my body, and I mean, I had journals and journals of like, today I woke up and felt this, I ate this. I was like obsessed with that. But the one thing that I kind of started to learn was that when I was constantly in fight or flight, and ironically, given my profession, it was a lot. When I was in that mode, I couldn't really heal. And so I had to find ways to get out of that. And one of
Mm.
my buddies, I just lucked out. One of my buddies worked for probably the number one at the time farm in the country, organic hemp. And so I knew it didn't have THC because I was getting drug tested at the time, like before my fights, and that had
Right.
big implications, right? If I tested positive. So I made sure it was clean, very clean product, no pesticides, no THC. And I started taking it and I really noticed it helped my anxiety. And even to this day, I mean, I've got my drops sitting here. Like it's a daily practice for me. And I just learned about the power of CBD, the endocannabinoid system, and how it affects your nervous system. And so as soon as I started like getting good results from it, I noticed my anxiety started decreasing. I was sleeping better. And then everything else started getting better. Now, I never come on shows or say that, all of a sudden I took CBD and all my problems were gone. It's anybody who says that, like, run away fast. But I will say it started to give me that momentum that I wanted. And it helps me so much with sleep, anxiety, pain because of that trickle down. And so my sister and I became obsessed with it. And we were like, you know what? Let's try to help people. Like when you go through as much pain as I've gone through and continue to go through, you want to help other people get out of pain. That pain becomes a gift, right? And it's the only way you can look at it and how I looked at it. Because I can either curl up in the fetal position and give in to my depression and pain, or I can use this pain as a tool to help other people. And that was the ethos of why we started the company. I was still fighting, had my career going. It was not to blow it up and make a bunch of money. Like we had other things that we were doing, just so happens that it really resonated with people. And we found out how many people are struggling and looking for alternative natural solutions to these things. So that was really the birth of the company. We started it in my sister's spare bedroom. We were literally labeling all the bottles ourselves. I was running to USPS myself,
I
packaging
love it.
everything.
Did you start it in 2020 or 2021?
Yeah, we started the company in the end of 2018.
Oh, 2018. Okay. Oh,
And
right.
once again, the funny little thing, like how pain is a gift. I broke my rib months before that in a huge title fight. I broke my rib in the second round of a big fight, national television, for one of these belts sitting above me. And I don't know, to this day, I don't know how I got through. I went 8 more rounds with a broken rib, won the fight, got back to the dressing room and collapsed. And they rushed me to the hospital.
Yeah.
So I was out for 6 to 8 months. Anybody that's broken a rib knows there's nothing you can do. So the timing, as much I was down in the dumps, we'd been talking about this company. And I was like, you know what? Now more than ever, like, let's start this thing. I've
Let's
got
do
nothing
it.
to do. I'm not training. So that ended up becoming a blessing because it ended up creating the most beautiful company that we've ever created to this date. We have like over 7,000 5-star reviews, and we get testimonials every single day of people
Mhm.
that it's helping. And it never would have happened if I didn't go through that immense amount of pain. And so, yeah, the pain was a gift in that
Yeah.
sense.
It's so crazy when we look at, like, these experiences, and I always say, like, the universe always has things in store for us that we never could have imagined or planned for ourselves, right? And we can do what we can, but sometimes these gifts happen, and as long as you had the ability, and I think this is important to preface too, is, like, you had the ability to see that as a gift and, like, to take that opportunity. You recognized it was space, you recognized that you could do this as opposed to being stuck and curled up in a ball and woe is me because you broke your rib. And I
Yeah.
think too, Going back to what I loved that you talked on to, and I'm gonna dig into your science brain a little bit here in a second. But you said, and I love it, like, again, run from anybody who says, like, their one thing is gonna heal you, like, run. But what it did for you, because we talk about all the time, is you've already touched on it, like, you cannot heal when you're living in fight or flight, right? Like,
Mm,
when we look at our nervous system, we have, like, our 3 phases. We have our, like, safety parasympathetic, dorsal vagal, we have our fight or flight sympathetic, and then we have dorsal vagal, which is when we're in that shutdown depression period. I always talk about we need to have different tools and different resources to help us shift through these things when we're in these different states. So when you were in more of that kind of depression state, like comedy was your thing to, you said it, be like almost like help you claw out of that state into the next one. Right. And what CBD gave you the ability to do and gave your nervous system the ability to do was to shift out of that fight or flight into more of that parasympathetic, which is when our immune system operates better. It's when we get better circulation to our brain. It's when we have decreased inflammation. Like healing happens in a parasympathetic state. It does not happen. And when sympathetic. And so when you found this tool and this became a resource and part of your toolbox to help you shift into that other state, of course, all these other things started to domino and you started to feel better. And I just love that you have that lived experience of that and being able to share that too.
yeah, I think it was a huge blessing in disguise because, you know, CBD and in this industry is federally legal, but there's a lot of bad actors in it because it's not quite FDA approved yet, like most of the supplement industry, right? And
Yeah.
so, unfortunately, there's people who take advantage of that in terms of claims, in terms of how they're sourcing. So, the one thing I will say is when you're getting a CBD or a supplement, in general, you really want to look at COAs, which is certificates of analysis, and make sure that there's no heavy metals, there's no pesticides. The level of what they have in there is exactly what they say. And so for us, we went above and beyond. We do double third party lab testing. There's no, industry standard that says you need to do that. We spend more money than we have to for this selfishly because I take the product and my family does. But also like, I don't want to give this to anybody without knowing exactly what's inside of it. So I think the transparency and the efficaciousness of a clean product is incredibly important. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of that in this industry.
So I get asked about CBD a lot from a lot of my clients. I get asked mostly about it with like, will it help my symptoms? Will it help my sleep? Will it help my anxiety? Those are kind of the two biggest things I get asked about in terms of it. And unfortunately, I being a physical therapist in British Columbia, it is outside of my scope of practice to give any sort of advice on supplementation. And do you want to hear something ridiculous? Nutrition is outside of my scope of practice, which is the silliest thing in the world. But especially when it comes to things like CBD and supplements. And
Mm.
so for people who are looking to start potentially trying with CBD, and that's always the big thing is it's like, make sure you know where it's coming from. But what would be the red flags of a company or a source that you might want to stay away from?
Yeah, granted, we're a US company, but for us, US organic grown hemp, I think is massively important. Also in Canada, finding a company that is using organically sourced hemp that is giving you those COAs, those third party lab tests, and ultimately that has a face to the brand, like has good customer service. Like what a lot of companies are doing is just popping up shell companies. They're sourcing from China, they're sourcing from South America. They're not high quality. Like anything on Amazon, stay away from. Like I'm not
Right.
going out and saying that we're the only company that's a good company in this space, but because there's others that do a great job as well, but the Amazon stuff is really BS, unfortunately. And, you need to find a brand that you can trust and that their customer service is on point when you're asking questions. And you know that there's like an identity, a face, a family behind the brand is kind of my advice there.
Mhm. Okay, talk to me about how CBD affects the nervous system. How
Yeah.
does that cannabinoid system give us like a high level, not super sciencey, but like explain for us how this actually works?
Yeah. So all mammals have an endocannabinoid system and there's all these receptors in it. And so let me first start and say CBD versus the more popular THC is non psychoactive. So will not get you high. There's other cannabinoids in the plant, CBN, CBG, that all have different purposes, right? So CBN is more of a sleep inducing cannabinoid. We actually have that in some of our sleep products, but it's non psychoactive. So it's important that if you don't want to try THC, that you make sure you're getting either a broad spectrum or an isolate CBD because when you see full spectrum, that will have, traces of THC in it. That is okay for some people. Some people like THC, but when it comes to CBD, it activates the body in a non-psychoactive way by hitting the receptors in the endocannabinoid system. And what it does is essentially it puts your nervous system into homeostasis. Your endocannabinoid system affects everything in your body, from your gut to your nervous system to even aspects of your brain. It's a system that we've known has been around in all mammals for years and years. That's why it's interesting. Dogs actually respond really, really well. Dogs and cats to CBD if they're skittish or afraid of fireworks or can't sleep or something. But what it does is it activates the CB1, CB2 receptor in your endocannabinoid system and puts your body into that homeostasis, which helps you get into that parasympathetic rest and digest. So it's an incredible tool that comes from planet Earth, like it's organically grown, like our stuff,
Mhm.
and is not synthetic. And I think that's so important. Like there's so many things that God, universe, whatever you want to call it, put on this earth that fit perfectly into our body to help heal. And this is one of those things. The fact that the receptors in CBD and other cannabinoids fit in and lock in perfectly with those receptors in the endocannabinoid system is not a mistake, point blank. It's by someone's design, however you believe it. So, what I love about CBD and what I tell people who are new to it is that since it's not psychoactive, you can really start low, work your way up. We generally suggest about 25 milligrams is a good starter dose. I take up to 100 a day. There's really very, very, very few side effects. And that's the beautiful side of this. Like at worst, if you take too much of it, you'll maybe get an upset stomach, maybe some diarrhea, maybe dry mouth. But there are clinical studies being done right now. And there's a lot of studies done being right now on the efficacy, on the lack of liver toxicity. So that's really important too.
Mm.
The fact that there's no liver toxicity with CBD is incredible because you can't say that about Tylenol, about Advil. You can walk into your local pharmacy or CVS or Walgreens, go buy a bottle of Tylenol, take down the entire thing and overdose and kill yourself. I could drink this entire bottle right now and that would not give me an overdose. I wouldn't need to be
Mhm.
rushed to the hospital. So the fact that we're selling things on shelves that do have a liver toxicity that high, yet, this is stigmatized and demonized is really a
Yeah.
shame. So I think that's important to know. It's a very low risk, high reward type of compound.
That's awesome. And honestly, I love that you put it in that context space. I never would have thought of that, to be honest. Of the whole, like, I can do Tylenol on this, but I could do this and be okay. Like, it's just so interesting to me. And we definitely don't need to go down this path, but it is interesting to me how just like society as a whole and these ingrained beliefs and patterns and these things that are like CBD is linked to weed, which is linked to drugs, which is bad. And it's like just that automatic like loop that happens in people's heads. And it's like, no, hold up. Like, let's step back and like, let's relearn. Let's re-educate and let's like create a new narrative around health and what can support us in our bodies. So
Yeah.
I love it. Thank you. Okay, one last question for you. I try to keep these episodes nice and short. So we've talked about like power of mindset. You've talked about kind of like showing up for yourself a little bit every day. You've talked about how you have a sauna and a cold plunge at your home. So one of the things that I work with my clients with and with my coaching groups with are the power of routine. Particularly, I would say a morning or an evening routine, and the power of that in showing up for yourself intentionally every single day. So, whether that is a cold plunge, which is my go to, whether that is journaling, whether that is meditation, is making that consistent time in your life and prioritizing yourself, and not that doing that once is going to change your life, right? I feel like we're in this part of society today where instant gratification is a thing and that's not real life. But how showing up for yourself in these small ways consistently every single day can have amazing impact and does have huge impact in your health and wellness and ability to live an amazing life down the road. So my question to you would be, what does your ritual or morning routine look like when you implement it? And how would you say that that routine positively impacts you and has impacted you over the years?
I'm someone who, to be quite honest, I do meditate. It's tough for me. Breath work, I will do it. It's tough for me. I'm someone that really responds much better to doing things that are active and moving my body. So I
Mhm.
just make sure that like I'm trying to move my body at least every day. And it can be something really small. It's nowhere near my body can't handle the type of training and intense training that I put on myself during my professional career. So now for me, it looks like walking my dog, like playing pickleball. Like I'm literally slotting time off like in the day or in the evening to play pickleball. And I'm obsessed
Yeah.
with pickleball. And so just like for me, my routine is just finding one or two things that I feel like can get my blood flow going and it just makes me feel better. For instance, my sauna, I'm literally sitting right next to it, or cold plunge, things that are really getting the blood moving and are active for me. So I've tried so many times, just being dead honest, waking up, journaling, meditating. It didn't work for me. And I
It's
think
not for
that's
you.
important because I would beating myself up for it. And I think, everybody's so different and everybody finds, different ways to cope and heal. And so, yeah, that's my way is like, since I was an athlete, like I need that adrenaline. I need things that I'm competing and active. And I mean, like yesterday, I must have played pickleball for like 3 hours and it's just like, it lit me up and made me happy. So, yeah.
Love it. If you could leave parting words for someone who's on a health journey and has been on this climb for what feels like a while, or maybe they're just starting, right? So maybe it's someone who something has just happened and they're like trying to figure out how to navigate this, or what words of inspiration or advice would you leave someone with?
Yeah. I mean, I spoke about it earlier, but I would say pain is a gift. And it's been a gift in my life for so many reasons that we kind of just went over. And I
Mhm.
even have to tell myself that on days like today. Like today was a day that I had bad headaches in the morning and just wasn't feeling good. And so, I'm not out of the clear. Like I'm so much better than what I was, but I still have those ups and downs. And so, but that little mantra of like pain as a gift is really beautiful because they're not just words. And it's very tough to like realize that when you're sitting in it and you're sitting in the pain, you're like, how the hell is this going to be a gift? Like, this is the worst.
Yeah.
But sure enough, I guarantee every single person listening to this has a moment in their life that they can retroactively look back at that they're so grateful for because it gave them a positive outcome. It gave them something that is incredible in their life right now that they wouldn't trade for the world. The issue is when you're in it, it's so difficult to realize that. But if you go back and think of other moments that helped where that pain was a gift, now that you're sitting here today, then you can put yourself in the present and be like, all right, yeah, today's not great, but this will manifest itself as something better. And to be honest, it's just the only way to get through. Like it sounds cheesy, but it's the only way is just to have that optimism and that hope, because hope is probably the most powerful drug out there. So yeah, I think that's probably some of my parting words and advice to myself too, to be honest.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing and giving us some insight into kind of your journey and a tidbit into the CBD space. For those listening, again, Mike is co-founder of Soul CBD, and so we will drop the website below so people can learn about the company and all those lovely things. I know you guys have new lines coming out and some really exciting things there too. So, unfortunately, Canadians, we are not able. Hopefully, one day. But for all of our listeners in the US, they are an amazing resource for you. I love both you and Angie and the fact that like you just feel your hearts pour into everything you guys do. Right? When you talked about, you want to see the family behind it, you want to see the people behind the brand. Kudos to you and Angie because you guys show up wholeheartedly and your passion is felt through every post you do, every reel, everything you share about that company. Like you feel you through it and how much you want to support people. So you've done an amazing job, and I am honored to get to spend this time with you today.
Thank you. I really, really appreciate it.
All right, everyone. Until next week, we will see you soon. That's today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you liked what you heard, give us a like, give us a share, give us a tag on Instagram, and please never hesitate to reach out. We love communicating and connecting with you. Until next week, my friends, have a marvelous day.